this is Dragon Videos. I hope y'all are doing well. Welcome back to my channel. And this time I'm going to go over one of Glitch Productions shows that just went to Prime, Murder Drones. I've watched Murder Drones earlier, but I thought to throw in my 2 cents of each of the characters that were in the show so far and what I wanted to see in a possible season 2. I have heard some rumors going on about it, but I don't have anything to verify it, so if anyone else who might have known about it, please feel free to mention it in the comments below. But bear in mind, this is going to have some future spoilers, so without further ado, let's begin.
Welcome to my party. We're just
Like any other show, it's best to kick off with the main character, Uzi. Now when we're introduced to Uzi, she comes across as a bit of your stereotypical rebel teenager. However, she really does have a really good history presentation. Even though that wasn't part of her assignment, if she were in a history class and if she were to show this sort of display in real life, she would get an A for sure. And of course, it was impressive the fact that she was able to build a weapon all by herself. Uzi is very brave. However, not many people in her colony really appreciate her skill set. Thad seemed to be the only person who truly respected her, and, well, her dad is kind of somewhere else and seemed pretty obsessed with doors. So she's kind of alone in the world until one day she was brave enough to venture out into the snow and come across N, a murder drone who is basically more friendlier than she'd possibly imagined. As a result, she slowly begins to find herself in one nightmare situation after another, learning more about her past and her connection to her mom. I feel really bad for Uzi because of how much she's treated as an outsider. I mean, she means well, and when she's very close to someone she cares about, she returns that loyalty head on and will protect that person at all costs. She's not as heartless as she seems, it's just she's had a really terrible luck with friends. And I do admire the fact that she does have her softer moments that makes you want to hug her when things get so rough for her. And when it came to her self-acceptance, it was a pretty nice touch. She was, while her character growth could have used more work, in all fairness to her, because there were still some moments where she still needed to feel like she was wanted accepted in the colony in some way, which I really hope they would adjust to that sooner or later in season 2. But man, that battle with Sin, and when she swallowed the remainder of Sin's heart whole, oh my gosh, that was both impressive, scary, and of course, super brave on her part. If there was ever a dog breed for N, it would definitely be Golden Retriever because he is just laid back and super sweet, despite the fact that he's a disassembly drone and he was meant to hurt and attack people whenever possible, thanks to the company he works under. However, when Uzi kind of comes into his life, he slowly begins to question and think for himself, which is why I like their dynamic in the first place. As for N, he helps with Uzi's emotional baggage, making her feel comfortable being vulnerable considering of the place that she's in right now, especially when she slowly becomes a monster. Again, I adore this couple, and I really feel real bad for N when you learn about his backstory of how he was just a simple servant drone who was somehow revived when he wasn't properly disposed of, thanks to a young girl named Tessa. Along with J and B, somehow the Absolute Solver got hold of Sin and thus resulting in a horrible mutation of sorts. And somehow he got a lobotomy out of a deal. And having to face that all over again, well, poor N had to try to deal with the trauma as best as he could. Thankfully, Uzi was there to help keep him grounded.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign.
V had a major drastic change throughout the entire series of Murder Drones, even though it's been one season alone. When she was first introduced, she came across as very bloodthirsty and a feeling, and not exactly someone you would want to get within 2 meters with, though N for some reason had a crush on her at the time, before he got close with Uzi. Now, we start to show some very weird caution towards Uzi when she started to transform in episode 4. Uzi started to become showing strange behavior that V was certain came from Sin. So, it was understandable later on when we learned that she was working alongside N at the time. She was also another droid as well. And over time, she started to try to help out Uzi whenever possible, and the rest of the gang, though she could still be at odds with Uzi at some point, but tries to be there when Uzi's at her worst. I will give her credit for that. Much I could say about Jay, except for the fact that she's just very strict and can sometimes be very mean to N, especially when it comes to just trying to be the reasonable one in a certain situation and questioning stuff. Now, it seems like Jay knew right from the start that Tessa is Sin, or at least as far as we know in terms of Tessa, and that she had a bit of history with V, N, and Tessa as well, and that she seemed to have some concerns for the poor human girl, even going as far as trying to actually break the chain to free Tessa in the process, which probably means that Jay might have had some feelings for Tessa at the time, which we're not 100% sure is going to happen. Then there's the result of her actually siding with Sin for reasons that are still, I think, are a little 100% unclear to me. But as far as I know, she chose the wrong team, as V said before. While she's great in combat, it seems like she just has some pretty poor judgment. Well, I'm not exactly a very big fan of Khan. Mostly after what happened in the pilot when he runs off and lets Uzi face the murder drones alone. But his character does get a little better later on in the series. Not perfect, but he does have his moments where he was an okay father, especially when Uzi was slowly beginning to turn into a monster at some point. While most of the time he was useless, he did try to provide Uzi with some information in terms of where she came from and what her powers can entail. And later on, he also stepped up his game at the tail end of Season 1, Episode 8, by basically trying to distract Jay long enough for V to finally come and face them once and for all. While it was a decent effort, I do hope that if Season 2 comes, Khan will play a better role in the series. Doll, I also wish became an ally because she seemed to be the only other person besides Uzi who had these absolute solver powers and would have helped Uzi feel a bit more comfortable and have better control of those powers. I mean, true, Doll did kill innocent people, but it does feel like she has some self control to her abilities, even if they were a bit dangerous. So, if Doll hadn't been so prideful, and in her last act, she only urged Uzi to fight back, knowing full well of who Tessa really was. And again, if we ever had to see her again in season 2, it probably would have been in flashbacks. Lizzie and Thad. It's unfortunate that they didn't get a whole lot of screen time because I feel like their characters are okay. With Thad, I liked him the most because he didn't exactly make Uzi feel excluded and seemed to like of who she is as a person and seemed to be like the closest thing of a friend to her considering how everyone else treated her. As for Lizzie, she's and okay, she wasn't your stereotypical mean girl, and she seemed to want to include V and other stuff. However, sometimes her stupidity makes me want to facepalm myself more than one occasion. However, I do admit I do like of how these two join in on the final battle, allowing V enough time to take on Jay, as well as providing Uzi the necessary weaponry used to try to take down Sin, which I will talk about now. The final character I'm going to talk about is this Nightmare Fuel. Yeah, she's something, alright? Well, with Sin, she definitely is a bit scary. In the beginning of when we learn more about the story of N and the others, we learn that Sin used to be one of those drones that didn't disassemble properly and as a result kind of had a messed up brain and apparently became the host of the Absolute Solver. Ultimately, she does talk a little strange, but don't let that cutesy stuff fool you. Towards the end of the season of Murder Drone, she becomes full blown nightmare fuel, going as far as killing off Doll and, of course, trying to possess Uzi. To make matters worse, she tries to destroy the entire frickin' planet and psychologically destroy N and V and Uzi while in the midst of a final battle. Thankfully, though, the team managed to take down Sin and save the world before anything goes wrong. We don't know if this little tidbit at the end has anything to do with it, but that's just something I wish we would have more addressed if we have a season 2. So these are just my thoughts and I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of these characters from Murder Drones? Do a like and subscribe. This is Dragon Veo signing off.